Breaking news. We sent Gary Cottrell to Spain. He's at the Bernabeu for us now. And there he is. Gary, great to see you. Right. Let's start with Julián Álvarez and this €150 million bid. Could this move happen?
It's the Galactico bid that Florentino Perez was promising in that election campaign, isn't it? That he was going to make a bid, €150 million bid for an unnamed player. Well, today they've named that player and they've made the bid. But there's a big difference, isn't there, between a bid and actually bringing the player to the club. Maybe a little bit of mischief making, maybe a little bit of living up to his promise. Because Álvarez, we know, is on a contract until 2030, and he's got a clause in that contract that a bid of €500 million needs to be made before the club have to sell. Now, that's just a safety valve, I think. That's a bit of protection for Atletico Madrid, a pair of handcuffs. It's not a realistic fee, is it? And there is, I'm sure, an agreement inside the club between the player and Atletico that a much smaller bid would be acceptable, somewhere around the €150 million mark, if the player wanted to leave and if the club were happy to sell him and make that kind of money. And we do know as well, bad news for Real Madrid is that Barcelona are also interested in the player, as were Arsenal and PSG. But it's been made clear to Arsenal and PSG that the player wants to go to Barcelona if he goes anywhere. So yeah, interesting bid, and I'm sure there's more legs on it. There'll be a lot more debate about it in the future, Mike, but I think it's a little bit cheeky, this one from Real Madrid.
Yeah, sounds it. Do players tend to move, Gary, between Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid?
There is a pretty long-standing agreement, gentleman's agreement, if you like, between Atletico and Real Madrid that one player won't move from one club to the other or the other way. And that's another bit of cheekiness, I think, from Perez, who likes to flex his muscle, who likes to live up to the promises that he makes in his election campaigns. And in the past, we've seen he's promised Figo and delivered. He promised David Beckham when Barcelona were also promising David Beckham, but it's Real Madrid who got him. And, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo famously came on his return to the presidency in 2009. So, yes, there is that agreement, and I think that's part of the reason why he's made this bid, just to show that Real Madrid are still, in his opinion, the biggest club in the world, and they're not bound by any particular rules, gentleman's agreement or not.
Let's move away from Álvarez. Let's talk Álvaro Arbeloa. He's off. Does that mean Jose Mourinho is in?
Well, we knew that Arbeloa was going. Obviously, he came in to take over from Xabi Alonso. It was only ever really, unless he'd done an amazing job and won the Champions League and won the Liga until the end of the season. He announced himself, actually, that he was leaving in the summer before the news conference ahead of the final game of the season a couple of weeks ago against Athletic Bilbao. He said that this would be my last game. In fact, he didn't attend the news conference after the game. He'd gone already. So they've dotted the I's, they've crossed the T's, they've sorted out his money, and they've issued a statement thanking him, thanking his family, and wishing him all the best. And that is the way of things, certainly with Real Madrid. They would always expect you to issue a formal statement saying goodbye to Arbeloa before issuing the formal statement saying hello to Jose Mourinho. We know it's Jose Mourinho. Perez has said so on at least 3 occasions already, but it's not yet been officially announced on the website like these things are. And that, I think, will follow now quite quickly. And Jose Mourinho, still we expect him to be unveiled at some point tomorrow.
Gary Cottrell, live from the Santiago Bernabeu. Thank you, Gary.
Back to Rob Dorset, who was watching England's training session earlier. Rob, have we got ya?
Sorry about that. Are you hearing me okay? I
Loud
think
and clear.
We just in that England training session, we got absolutely drowned by the England sprinklers, and all of our camera kit and all the sound equipment we're still trying to dry out. So I think there were some gremlins in there, but apologies about that. Yeah, you were asking me about that England training session. 31 players out there in total, the biggest England training session I can remember, and that's of course because the Arsenal contingent, Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, Noni Madueke and Eberechi Eze are now training with England. First time we've seen them do that, even though they've been doing so behind closed doors for the last couple of days. And it'll be really interesting to see how they've acclimatised, you have to say. I'm whispering this very, very quietly, But on the face of it, there are no injury problems for England going into this friendly match. Saying that before a friendly game, 8 days before England's first game at the World Cup, is always a very dangerous thing to do. Other things that we noticed, though, in that training session, Jed Spence, who was outstanding, I thought, in the first half against New Zealand in Tampa the other day, didn't have his jaw support on. We know he broke his jaw just towards the end of the season. He's been wearing that in matches. He didn't have it on in training. Maybe he does when they go to full contact. And Thomas Tuchel had a full hoodie on at one point, despite the fact that it felt one of the hottest days we've had here. Incredibly humid out there for England to train in. I've been told that Tuchel is desperate to keep the sun off his face. We saw him a couple of days ago when we last saw England training, trying on 3 different hats to try and keep that sun away from him. So that gives you an idea of how England are trying to cope with the conditions. But it did feel as though the intensity has ramped up a little bit now ahead of that game against Costa Rica in Orlando tomorrow. That's England's final friendly match, remember, City.
Some doubts over whether Jude Bellingham is a guaranteed starter at the World Cup, though. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Jude Bellingham is fighting for his place, as a lot of other players are, and we've done an awful lot of chat, haven't we, over the last 12 months or so about whether Jude Bellingham is an automatic first choice in Thomas Tuchel's starting 11. The truth of the matter is he isn't. He hasn't been. In the whole of World Cup qualifying, it was Aston Villa's Morgan Rogers who got the nod ahead of him. He was the only England player involved in all 8 qualifying matches. Bellingham played in 4 of them. But I thought it was notable that Thomas Tuchel talked up how well Bellingham played in that second half against New Zealand and just how good he looks in training. Is that a little nod to the fact that maybe the England head coach thinks Bellingham, with the much greater tournament pedigree, of course, than Morgan Rogers, whether he's going to get the nod in that opening game against Croatia? I guarantee we'll be talking about it now and for the next 8 days as well, because it's one of the biggest topics of discussion of the media and of supporters. Who England does a world-class generational talent like Jude Bellingham miss out because Tuchel thinks that Moyes offers more to his starting 11? Remember, that's on the back of the discussion we had about the World Cup squad with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Cole Palmer and Phil Foden and Harry Maguire left at home. So Tuchel isn't afraid to leave big names out. Will he leave Jude Bellingham out for the World Cup opener? It's going to be a really big call.
Yeah, and look, we're set to hear from Thomas Tuchel later on, so not long till that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's in less than an hour's time now. We're supposed to hear from Mark Gay and Thomas Tuchel. And from Gay's perspective, what a 12 months he has had, by the way. Won the FA Cup with Crystal Palace, gets his big dream move to Manchester City, wins 2 more cup competitions with City, and now here he is at his first ever World Cup. It's been a whirlwind 12 months for Mark Gay, and it'd be really interesting to see what he has to say about who he thinks might be alongside him, because I think that's another area of debate. Is it going to be John Stones? Is it going to be Ezri Konsa? Different strengths of each of those players. And when we get to speak to Thomas Tuchel himself, how's he going to use this final friendly? Is he going to give really a lot of game time to the players that need it, or is he going to try and mix and match a little bit again? Is he going to try and put what is closest to his starting 11 out there for the actual World Cup to give them some game time together and try and get those levels of communication? It's going to be a really interesting one, so stay with us on Sky Sports News for the next hour or so. As soon as Mark Gay and then Thomas Tuchel get on that podium behind me, we'll bring it to you live.
Brilliant. Don't forget to ask him which hat he's going to wear, Rob. Now, Carlo Ancelotti and his Brazil side head into the World Cup aiming to end a 24-year wait without one and add a 6th star to their badge. Preparations continued ahead of their tournament opener against Morocco on Saturday, but the build-up hasn't come without its injury concerns. One of those saw soon-to-be Manchester United midfielder Ederson receive a late call-up. He trained today after replacing the injured Wesley, who picked up an injury against Egypt, which would rule him out of the tournament. And other members of the squad aiming to win a record 6th World Cup were the likes of Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr., as well as Premier League names in Arsenal's Gabriel, Brentford's Igor Thiago and Matheus Cunha as well. And after an inclusion that saw seismic reaction, there was no Neymar in training today. He's touch and go ahead of Brazil's opener.
Palace have agreed a deal in principle for Pierre Sage to become their new head coach. Palace are close to agreeing a compensation package with his current club, Lens. The Frenchman is expected to sign a contract up until the summer of 2029 with an option of a further year. Well, Sarge took over at Lens in June last year and led them to a second-place finish in Liga. He also guided them to a first trophy in their 120-year history when they won the Coupe de France. Now, before the 2026 World Cup kicks off, there is a complex ticket row. The Iran Football Federation has claimed that their ticket allocation has been pulled just days before the tournament begins. However, Iranians living in America can and have been buying tickets through FIFA's official platform in large numbers. Iran is subject to economic sanctions administered by the US Treasury, which means it's prohibited to have financial dealings with the Iranian government or financial institutions. Our chief correspondent Kaveh Solokol has more.
And you have to remember that on the west coast of the United States, you have a community of more than 1 million Iranian Americans. Now, they have been buying tickets for Iran games in huge numbers on FIFA's official ticket website, where tickets are available on general sale. So there will be a lot of Iranian fans at Iran's games. All participating federations in this World Cup get 8% of the stadium capacity in tickets for their games from FIFA. Now, the situation with the Iranian Federation is very, very complicated. And the reason I say that is because the Islamic Republic of Iran is subject to economic sanctions, which are being administered by the US Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Controlled. Now, that means it is prohibited to have any financial dealings with the Iranian government or Iranian financial institutions, and that limits the ability of FIFA 26 to process certain payments. So I think that is where the confusion has come from. Having said all that, what can happen to this 8% allocation of tickets which the Iranian Federation say should be given to them to distribute to fans? I think what FIFA can do is just say, look, that allocation, we can just put it on general sale on the FIFA official ticketing platform, and if any fans want to buy them, any Iranian fans want to buy them, lots of them already have, they can just buy the tickets that way.
Now to the news that Omar Artan, the Somalian referee, has been denied the chance to officiate at the World Cup after being denied entry to the US. Artan would have become the first Somalian official to appear at a World Cup, but he's now been dropped from the tournament. Kaveh Solokol has more on this as well.
Every few hours, it's another story. Another story about fans denied, players denied, officials denied, journalists denied, now refs. You know something, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's actually not funny. Something has to be said. It's expensive tickets, most expensive tickets ever. Expensive accommodation, transport through the roof. It has to be said. You know, is this how the hosts behave, really, for the greatest game, the greatest tournament in the world? Is this how the hosts behave? How are we not hearing more? How are we seeing how Qatar got dragged? How are we not hearing more? Is this the spirit of football? Really? You know who I feel for? I feel for the American fans who are desperate for this. American soccer fans who are desperate for this. How embarrassed they must be. How embarrassing for them this must be. This is, you know what? This is the World Cup. This is a World Cup of chaos.